6 signs that your marriage is failing, okay? How do you know that your marriage is failing? How do you know that your wife is giving you signals? I mean, we talk about this all the time where we say that your wife has been giving you signals for 2+ years. How do you catch that? What are the things to look out for? Maybe not even directly signs and signals, but the environment and what's going on. So then you can then start to look for signals. Just at first to become aware that something is off. Okay, so we're going to give you 6. There's more, but there's 6 big ones, okay, that we're going to go over right now. The first one is lack of physical intimacy, okay? Now, why is that? Physical intimacy for the feminine is different for the masculine, okay? So for the feminine, it's very emotionally charged. The stronger the emotional connection, the more frequent the physical intimacy it will be, and the experience of the physical intimacy as well, right? So when you're starting to see pullback in that area, and there's not, what you want to look for is, where am I emotionally with my wife? Are we emotionally checked out? Are we not on the same page, right? If she's coming with excuses, I'm tired, I don't feel like it, I don't want to do it, or I feel sick, I have other priorities right now. All of those excuses, common excuses that may come up around physical intimacy, if you're starting to notice that ongoing, not one-off, right? One-off, it can happen maybe even a couple times. But if weeks, months go by where you start to notice that, then that's pointing to emotional disconnect. So lack of physical intimacy ongoing, whether it's initiated by her or initiated by you and then rejected by her. But if it's lacking, there's a problem. You want to become aware. You want to start to get tuned in that there's something off. Now, lack of emotional intimacy. This, and I hope, please pay attention, because you're starting to see the connectivity between these 6 signs, okay, that your marriage is failing. They're connected. So I talked about lack of emotional intimacy around physical intimacy. Okay, but why is there lack of emotional intimacy? You now know why there's lack of physical intimacy in most cases. Why is there lack of emotional intimacy? Well, it's your communication, right? It's around your level of depthness emotionally, how emotionally safe she feels around you is not in place. The more emotionally safe she feels around you, the higher the probability that the depth of your emotional connection is in the right place. And when it's in the right place, then it will drive the physical intimacy as well. I know you have some thoughts around this, so combine.
Yeah, it's just around that point, right? Like for men are ready to go as regards the physical intimacy at the drop of the turn of a dime, right? Like they're
drop of a hat.
I'm ready to go, right? I'm ready to go. For women, it's very different, right? Sometimes there's the physical, hey, I just want a quickie, I just want that sensation. But way more, there's hey, I want the emotional connection first. I want that intimacy. I want that connection. I want that relationship to be strong, which paves the way for her to feel like the physical intimacy. It's very different for men. But if men don't pay attention to that and go, oh, she always has the headache. Oh, she's always too tired. If they think that's the only reason, it's speaking to exactly what we're talking about as regards, okay, where are you at emotionally? Where's the connection in the relationship? Because as I said, for women, if that connection isn't there, there's way less desire for the physical intimacy.
Exactly. And the next one, which is lack of sharing, short and frequent. Again, notice how it ties in, right? So physical intimacy is lacking. Emotional depth is not there, which is causing physical to lack. Now, emotional is not there. Well, why is that? Well, there's lack of sharing, right? One of the ways to one of the ways to deepen emotional connection is through how you communicate. But for that, you got to understand how the masculine and the feminine communicates with each other, right? Now, one of the signs that the feminine is checked out and not feeling safe emotionally is she's not sharing. Okay, so her communication with you becomes short and infrequent. So you're not having deep, long conversations. You're not talking about, meaningful topics. Her responses become more and more masculine. That's where the shortness comes in. It becomes more direct in the way she's perhaps asking you to do stuff or bringing something to you. You get the sense that she's just not in it. She just wants this to be over as fast as possible in terms of her and I communicating. And then the frequency is the times that this happen. So the longer communications, the longer discussions go down, and the shorter, more direct masculine communications from her start to go up. So that there's that discrepancy, right? When you start to notice that there is something going on and there's something on her mind, okay? And if you have done long communications with her, but you did all the other stuff we talked about, which is the defending, the justifying, the over-explaining, and that communication ended in arguments, then yeah, of course, you're going to start to experience this lack of sharing more and more because she's lost her willpower to continue because she sees that the communication is not working well. So this is another big sign that something is off. Now, if this goes on for long enough, then you're deepening the hole that you're in, and the distance to get back from, in terms of the emotional distance that she has, the physical distance that she has, the emotional safety that she has, the longer this goes on, the longer it will take for you to build it back and bring it back into the right spot.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are some men who are not familiar with the work of the Bulletproof Husband and the work of Bulletproof Men. So they're hearing this and they're going to obviously start paying attention, right? They're going to go home and they'll start paying attention to their interactions with their wife. So in some regards, we're increasing their awareness, right? They're gonna be able to see it. Awareness is half the battle is the saying. I'm not sure it is even half the battle, right? When you think of the work that men do in our membership, after getting the awareness, it's substantial work. It's more than 50% in my opinion, right? So being aware of it and starting to pay attention, starting to recognize it, yes, you can see it, but now there's a journey ahead, right? Now there's a journey to actually turn the tide in relation to what your relationship looks like, how you turn up in your relationship, what you need to bring to that relationship. Yeah. So don't feel sorry. I feel, but it's I think it's, as I said, it's the awareness on its own is a component of the bigger picture to alter your relationship.
Yeah, and then what do you do after it is the big question. Like, okay, now that I know something went from the unknown to the known, what do I do with it now? So again, notice the chain, constant arguments. Now, this may seem like an obvious one when you're constantly arguing, but husbands do get lost in the arguments and the frequency of the arguments. Now, one thing to understand is an argument takes two people. And I might be stating the obvious, but you'd be surprised at how many men don't look at it that way. So I'm going to state the obvious, because for those men that actually don't look at it that way, it'll help them, right? Your wife yelling, screaming, losing her shit, that's not an argument. That is not an argument. You are there, you are the receiving party, but that's not an argument. An argument becomes an argument when you engage in that. That's when two people are arguing. Two people are reacting, right? Your wife has her emotions in a place, and she's losing her shit because she's telling you stuff. You did this wrong, you did that wrong, this happened, this wasn't done, whatever the case is. Now, one of two things happen. You're cool as a cucumber, you're emotionally self-sufficient, you understand the difference between the feminine and masculine, and you understand how to handle that. Or it triggers you and you react because of the trigger. Now, your reaction to that, your reaction to her reaction makes it an argument. And then there's going to be reaction from her to your reaction, and then you're going to have reaction of yours again back to her reaction. This is where the justifying, the over-explaining, the losing, the yelling, all of that starts to happen. And when you are constantly arguing with your wife, you find yourself constantly in arguments, whether because it's you're initiating it or your wife or both of you, and it's constantly ongoing, it's another big sign that communication's broken. If communication's broken, there's going to be lack of sharing, deep sharing. If there's lack of deep sharing, there's going to be lack of emotional intimacy. If there's lack of emotional intimacy, there's going to be lack of physical intimacy. Right? And I know I'm repeating myself, but I want you to see how this all connect. Okay? So looking at how much you argue, how often amongst arguments you actually have good conversations, deep conversations. Are they present at all, or is just constant arguments? We are just constantly at each other, in front of the kids, not in front of the kids, whether we're home, whether we're going out. We can't even choose the restaurant to go to without an argument, or talk about what color napkin to put on for the dinner when the family's coming over. Everything just ends up to be an argument. Big red flag. And if you're not there yet, but you see that it's increasing, again, as John said, bringing it into your awareness is super critical.
Yeah, and there's that difference, right? You touched on it briefly in relation to, men that understand the masculine and feminine. Men will, when men understand that they will see her initial share as an expression, right? Like she's just expressing how she feels. But when you're not solid, consistent, and reliable, you end up getting triggered and you react to her expressing. Right? So she has this need to share where she's at emotionally, but you get triggered by something because maybe she says something about you or whatever it is that triggers something in you that you take personally. So then you're no longer creating that safe space for her. You're no longer providing that safe space for her. And that's what she reacts to. So she starts with expressing a feeling. You react to it for whatever reason, whatever bullet and insecurity it touches on. And then she reacts to the fact that, hey, you're meant to be my safe space. I'm meant to be able to talk to you about everything. I'm meant to be able to share what's gone on in my life. I'm meant to be able to share, where my emotions are at. But because you're not solid, consistent, and reliable, you shut down her ability, or you shut down your own ability to create that space and provide that space for her.
Now, this next one that I'm going to talk about, I need to take a step back because somebody who hasn't watched any of our other videos, they want to understand what that means. So ongoing management from masculine instead of feminine. What is management? So there's this concept of management of the relationship. It's one of the feminine's roles, right? The feminine manages the relationship between you and her. Okay. So when you look at your marriage, you want to look at it from that perspective. Okay, I lead my family, my wife manages the relationship. This has to do with anything and everything of the relationship between you and your wife. She manages that. She's the boss of that, if you will. And don't go tell your wife that because she won't understand the concept. I'm telling you this concept, right? If this is first time you're hearing about this, this is not something, it's not secret, but she won't understand it, okay? Especially if your marriage is not in a good place and you go, oh, you were supposed to manage the relationship. She won't understand that. She'll get pissed. What does that even mean? So I'm explaining it to you so you understand it. So management of the relationship includes how close you are, the degree of emotional intimacy, the degree of physical intimacy. It includes communication, how communication is, and how much you communicate. All of these are part of management of the relationship. Now, if she can do that from one of two places. If she's managing from the feminine, then she's managing from her feelings. If she's managing from masculine, then she's managing more from her logical side, where that's where she's becoming short and direct. And it's not a pleasant way to have your wife manage the relationship from the masculine side, because you as a masculine will rub against it and you'll try to compete. You'll try to go up against it. And it's not going to go well, right? It'll lead to the arguments. It'll lead to all the other stuff that we talked about. So hopefully this makes sense. John, anything you want to add on the management of the relationship aspect before kind of commenting on the masculine versus feminine management?
No. Again, I think a lot of it ties back to where the man is at emotionally, right? His ability to, even if she is managing from a masculine place, how he reacts to that is all directly related to where that man is at emotionally, where he's at from a confidence point of view. So yeah, let's play it out.
Continuous destroying of your ego. This is number 6. Naturally, the masculine's ego is always higher than the feminine's. Okay? And when it's too high, it's a threat for the feminine. So one of two things will happen. Okay? And again, comes down to understanding this masculine versus feminine, right? If you don't understand this, you've never heard of it, or you don't believe in the masculine feminine difference, it's going to cause you big trouble. But if you do, then listen very carefully. When your ego is way higher than hers, one of two things can happen. You can pull her ego up to match yours, option 1, or she will pull your ego down to match hers. Okay? Now, this will be in all marriages. This will happen in all relationships, and it's okay to some degree. Your goal should be that you pull her ego up to your level. That should be your goal. But still, sometimes you'll notice that she'll pull your ego down. However, if the relationship is on really good terms, your stage 5 relationship, that shouldn't really happen often. You should be able to pull her ego up to your level always. But a sign that your marriage is failing is if she's on a purge to destroy your ego. So always trying to bring your ego down, always smashing the things that you do, how you do it. Nothing is ever good. Doesn't matter how much you do. It's always bad. She never likes it. She never gives you appreciation. But the caveat is she puts in extra stuff to bring it even more down. Right? So it's one thing you're not getting appreciation. It's one thing it's not good enough. But then there comes the judgment, the blame, and other things that bring your ego down, bring your masculinity down. I guess another way to say this also is she's emasculating me, which, by the way, is not really, nobody can emasculate you, okay? Only person that does the emasculation is you, because it's your interpretation that does the emasculation. Your wife is reacting, doing things, and in her expression of that, you have an interpretation of what she's doing, which is causing the emasculation because you feel emasculated, okay? But your wife cannot really emasculate you, okay? However, you need to know that if she's taking actions to what you would call emasculate or destroy your ego, that's a sign that she's not in your camp. That's a sign that there are problems in the marriage, especially if this is happening ongoing.
Yeah, we spoke earlier just about reaction, right? Reaction in the argument phase. But you were listing off the items like, oh, no matter what you do is not good enough. You know, everything she comes at you with is an argument. There's, you know, you can't win. And I wonder how many wives have experienced that from the husband in the build up to the slap. I wonder how many men have been destroying their wife's ego rather than pulling them up, but they're going home, they're giving out about, you know, is the house such a mess all the time? Well, like, what are you doing all day? You're at home. I'm out working my butt off, and like, what are you doing at home? Like, the house is a mess. That, you know, how she disciplines the kids or doesn't discipline the kids, or how she interacts with them. Like, where's the build up on the wife's side of men destroying her ego or constantly chipping away at it? And sometimes that's, hey, not making time for her also chips away at her ego, chips away at her, am I not important enough? Like, I was important enough. I know I was. Or else I wouldn't have said yes to him when he asked me to marry him. But now what? Now I'm not? Because my ankles got fat when I, you know, was carrying kids around for him. So it's as I said, it's for her to continuously being trying to destroy your ego. I would suggest in 90 plus cases, it's because she's felt over an accumulation of time the same stuff, consciously or subconsciously. Consciously, as I said, whether it's directly coming from you or just her own subconsciously thinking, as I said, oh, he doesn't make time for me anymore. When we were dating, date night, he wouldn't miss a date night. We haven't done date night in a year. Right? As I said, all of that accumulation, all of that doesn't validate her. So it's the exact same stuff.